This was a great conversation with Neelima, who heads Measurement and Analytics Specialty Retail at Google. We start off with AI in retail marketing, digging into a real-world use case of Walmart's use of agentic solutions to compress the customer life cycle. We then get into the world of analytics and how AI has dramatically, exponentially impacted data janitorial work. Neelima describes how every single analytics touch point is now exploding in terms of speed, accuracy, and value. We then pivot to discussing changes in careers in analytics. And finally, Neelima shares how education pipeline has started to evolve to gear up for business needs. Dig in for more. Welcome to the AI for Marketing show. I'm your host, Angelina, with many years of experience marketing in the tech industry. This show is for marketers to keep up with the pace of AI. We host conversations with innovative leaders on the leading edge, experimenting and navigating in the world of AI for marketing. Today, we're joined by Neelima, heading Data Measurement and Analytics, Specialty Retail at Google, and also recently a data science instructor at UCSF CA. So, Neelima, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here today.
So we were introduced to each other by a common friend, past colleague, who absolutely believed, right, like that introducing us would be a great thing. And as predicted, we hit it off.
Yeah,
And
she was right.
I've been following your work and really excited, right, like about what we're going to uncover in this show as well. So I'd love for you to maybe share a little bit about yourself, Neelima, so that the viewers can also get to know you a bit before we dive into the nitty gritty of like, how you're rocking the world of retail analytics.
So happy to. First of all, really excited to be chatting. This is a topic that's near and dear to my heart. I've been in this marketing analytics space for many years now, almost 15 plus years in various leadership roles across analytics spectrum. And it's fascinating. The pace of change and the impact of change has been fascinating over the past few years. It's unprecedented for what we're seeing. And the possibilities, it just blows my mind. Especially with how AI has advanced and how much what we thought would take months is now days and in some cases even seconds, which is insane to even think about. So I'm very excited about this space. I've paid a lot of attention to measurement, analytics, understanding how to connect business goals to data-driven decisioning. And this whole AI frontier is changing everything up for us right now.
Yeah, completely. And as you were using the word unprecedented, I was just thinking that unprecedented was the word that got introduced into all of our vocabularies, like our collective vocabularies during COVID, right? That's when we used to talk about unprecedented times. And then this AI wave is equally deserving, right? If not more, of the term unprecedented. So I absolutely share. I'm drinking from the same Kool-Aid. I absolutely share that excitement about, what AI is already doing and transforming, right? Like for us. A little bit about your journey or history, if you'd want to share with us.
Yeah, happy to. I started out as an engineer. My early entry into the workforce was where I was working with systems as a business analyst, building the software development lifecycle and all that great stuff. And from there, I actually pivoted into analytics. Many years ago, I had the chance to work at Home Depot corporate as a part of their pricing analytics initiative. And that's when I fell in love with this field and saw how impactful it would be to a company. And that's how I pursued it. I went back to school, got a degree in analytics, and that has been my journey ever since. I've done all kinds of analytics. So think financial analytics, risk, product, and marketing. But marketing is what is truly very near and dear to my heart. That's an area where I stayed in and has continued to be a passion area for me.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, who would know Home Depot, huh? It started from Home Depot. I mean, Home Depot is associated with a lot of like DIY and a lot of like passion projects, right? So I think that makes total sense. Right? And love it that you're so focused on marketing. I think like marketing is actually one of the areas which obviously is getting turned on its head, right? Like with AI. So maybe we can dive into that a little bit now, and would love to learn from you as to how you're seeing AI really change and impact marketing, especially because you're sitting in an interesting role, Neelima, where you're kind of like the strategic advisor to the marketing leaders, right? Like you're helping them steer where marketing is going. So what are you seeing, in this journey and how it's changed, right? Like even from like maybe like 2 years ago to now.
The biggest difference is how direct, impactful, and immediate these changes feel like.
Mm.
In the past, you would think or hear about changes coming. Maybe it was the big data, or maybe it was the app data integration into marketing. All of these changes in the history had a little bit of a ramp time where you, as a marketing leader or as a CEO or CMO, had time to react, pivot, and put these learnings into market. But the pace at which AI is coming at us, especially in terms of potential marketing implications, it's almost as if you have to pick up and run and take advantage of this window of opportunity
Yeah.
versus waiting and figuring out how this might be showing up for your particular marketing
Yeah.
team. A great example that I can think of is I was recently reading about this and I posted it on LinkedIn as well, is Walmart. We
Mm.
have all these big companies making announcements on what AI agents are capable of, how you can deploy them in different ecosystems, particularly in consumer journeys. And then you read about Walmart. They're just going out and doing it on their own.
Mm.
They're not waiting for anybody to come and solve their problems, which is very impressive. They talk about their AI agents, which is going to be a super hyper personalization for how
Mm.
you interact with their ecosystem and how they go from merchandising decisions to serving an end customer, completely compressing the entire customer life cycle and the journey in the process. So it's fascinating to see these implications.
Yeah. Wow. And it's also kind of like so a lot of stuff to unpack over there actually, right? Like one is that so firstly, I think I was listening to one of the replays from the Snowflake summit that was happening here in SF, right? Like this week. And there was a clip where we had Sam Altman and Sridhar, right, like the CEO of Snowflake, and they were talking again about AI and how enterprise and their advice really, right? So absolutely, the same exact point, right, that you made, which is, enterprises, and they were talking about their advice that enterprises need to just run with it and this window of opportunity that you talked about, right? So I think that's definitely the message that AI forward leaders are essentially like trying to share, right, like with the community. The other thing that was also very interesting is that what you brought up Walmart as an example, right? And this is as big as it gets, right? In terms of like a size and scale of an enterprise, right? And up until now, like even now, right? Like there is a school of thought which absolutely, thinks that it's really difficult to change the course of a big ship, right? And
Mm.
essentially, how do you bring about change, right? Like in a big organization, and you're talking about, so that's very inspiring, right? That and an organization at that scale and level as Walmart essentially has been able to embrace this and. I would love to read the article, but I'd love to also know a little bit more about like if they shared, if there were any frameworks or any principles that they followed, right? Like in order to get that entire ship motivated to move in the same direction. Right. So if you have anything that you glean from that article, I would love to hear that too.
Sure. What I gleaned from the article is I think the way they looked at, they didn't go into all of the details, but what is published externally, from
Yeah.
what I can see, is they looked at their existing processes, their existing business goals and business processes, and tried to identify areas where an AI agent could go in and make it that much more efficient and streamline the overall end-to-end revenue generation process. So it's a little bit of both efficiency, speed, accuracy, along with in service of customer hyper personalization angle that they took. But what is interesting is they did not completely create net new processes with no bridges to existing processes. So that was interesting for me to notice, is to say it's a lot of understanding where the low hanging fruit is, where you can step in, implement, make some changes, and immediately see that kind of business impact from day one. So that I thought was interesting, and perhaps something for all of us to consider as we are exploring work within our own teams or within our own organizations is, what are some things where speed, accuracy, efficiency, reduced error rates can make a big impact very quickly in service of your overall business goals?
Yeah, those are absolutely like really solid strategic levers, right? Like to
Mhm.
take, right? Like towards the growth. So again, sticking to maybe like that Walmart example, the flip side of it, which is the consumer experience with Walmart, right? Is there anything that's actually shaping up and reshaping the consumer experience, right, for Walmart? Or are these mostly, internal facing initiatives, getting Walmart more organized, more efficient, leaner, right, and more strategic and smarter? Or are we actually and like maybe the next time I'm around and speeding past Walmart, right? I'll be like, oh, I want to go and check it out because like, is it actually shaping the consumer experience, right?
Yeah, based on what I read, it does sound like there is going to be a consumer interaction component, almost like buying agents that will also help buy products, and streamline that entire last mile of delivery. Now, I'm no Walmart expert.
Okay.
This is all based on one article,
Yes,
but
yes.
it does sound like, as a consumer, what you have and what you experience Walmart in terms
Yeah.
of their product and the user interface is going to be heavily, heavily impacted by how they deploy these agents in the back end.
Okay. Yeah. I think so that's an interesting article that we can dig into offline and we can even link to it, right? Like for folks because now they're probably intrigued. So coming back to your world, Neelima, like your world is steeped in specialty retail
Mhm.
analytics, right? Firstly, maybe if you can just define for us, what is specialty retail, right? How is it differentiated from just regular retail? And when you are in your analytics role, right, like in specialty retail, right, like what are some of the macro things that you're looking out for, right? Like, so would love to essentially dig into following that, where you're seeing the before afters in terms of AI, coming in those macro, categories for specialty retail. Yeah.
Sure, happy to. So, in terms of specialty retail, I know the terminology might be a little confusing. What
Yeah.
that basically means is these are retailers who are hyper focused on a certain subsegment. So, for example, you could be a retailer that's heavily focused on beauty based products. So, that would be a beauty specialty retailer.
I see.
Or you could be a retailer that's extremely focused on furniture and home goods only, and therefore your entire business model is around that home and furniture versus having the, let's say, like a Walmart or a big box model where everything is in the
Okay.
same, under the
Okay.
same roof. So that's what a specialty retailer means, is they're hyper targeted to a specific part of that overall economy in terms of the retail offerings.
Okay.
So that's what it means.
Okay.
And then you asked the question about before and after. Um, the biggest before and after I'm noticing, and we are having active conversations around, is how much of an augmented, I know the phrase that's been often used in the context of AI has been the co-pilot, and I feel like a lot of that approach is being considered or deployed across companies right now, which is there is still the human in the loop. They play a very critical role. There's the human, there's a definite need, hunger, and value for the human expertise. But how do you take what AI has to offer and augment your human expertise? So I'm seeing a lot more of those conversations happening, and how can they be used in terms of, again, things that we talked about. How do we either increase speed, accuracy, or faster time to goal accomplishment?
Okay. And I mean, this is probably not tied to your analytics world, but just taking a zoomed out lens, right? Like into specialty retail and just thinking about how it's probably being impacted by, the possibilities, right? Like with AI. So generative AI, if you think about it in terms of like the merchandise, the cataloging, right? Like the creative and the copy production, etc. Right? I mean, Google's everybody's loving, right? Like the new tool, VO,
Yes.
right? So I'm not sure like how much of it is actually proliferated and how much of it is actually being used by these retailers now, right? Like along that journey of putting it on the shelf, like putting out the descriptions, etc., pricing, you know, even forecasting, right? Like, so just curious to know from your perspective as to which of these areas in that retail chain is AI essentially making its most, mark
Sure.
currently, right?
Sure.
That people are not hesitating to use. Because even with video, there's a little bit of hesitation, right? Which is like, hey, this video looks great, but it's actually not following the laws of physics, right? Because you've got something like floating around or whatever. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
yeah. So there's a little bit of hesitation that I can't just like let this autoplay, right? Like I can't just like push a
Mhm.
button and say create all the videos for all of my 20,000 products, right, in the catalog. You still need, like you said, the human expertise and the human in the loop, right? That kind of thing. So again, would love if you can share your expertise and especially your vantage point, right? Like when you're sitting and looking across so many different retailers, seeing what they're doing with AI. So which parts of this train, right, is AI impacting the most right now for the retailers?
I think I like how you brought up some of the recent announcements that have come out of all sorts of companies, including the most recent Google Marketing Live, where VO was referenced and whatnot. Um, Across the retail chain, most of the functions are AI ready at this point. In terms of, there's an opportunity for retailers to deploy and leverage AI and get the gains and benefits from it. Based on what you were saying, and has been a concern in the past across the board, which is, brands might have very specific brand guidelines. How should a brand think about that if you are automating or having AI develop your creatives and whatnot? This probably would have been something that I would have wanted to spend more time on even 6 months to 9 months ago. But the pace at which the technology has developed, I don't know if you've played with any of the newer ones, there is so much more control ability in terms of how you capture the laws of physics and the laws of the real world and
Yeah.
how the videos are looking. In fact, I recently just played with Flow is another
Yeah.
product that uses VO as a backend, and it's fascinating. 10 minutes and you feel like you're a major Pixar movie director. And while that was a personal project, that's an area that a lot of retailers are actively looking into because there's so many options in the market. And there is the human expertise in the loop that's making it that much better, not just in terms of auditing for the quality of outcomes, but also the input. A lot of these tools will produce what they're being asked to.
Yeah.
And maybe if you think about the talent gaps that a lot of companies must be and are currently thinking about, is a lot of them have traditional programmers or traditional design background folks. AI is now enabling you to be pretty much anything you choose if you know how to ask for what you want. Like
Yeah.
prompt engineering has opened up so many new paths. You can
Yeah.
suddenly pick a career if you know really how you want to prompt the AI.
Yeah.
And that becomes critical in terms of the outputs are very much driven by how your input prompts are structured. And so there's this conversation happening in the market and in the industry right now about what does a good AI ready brief look like? Because in the past, it would be a conversation of how do you put the best brief out for your agency or a vendor to come in and produce the right type of creative and assets for you. And now it's become a question of yes, and how could I short circuit that process and perhaps try the same with an AI based prompt brief. So that's a really fascinating area that a lot of folks are spending good time on fine tuning. In fact, I'm sure you've seen this Coca-Cola ad that they specifically announced that
Yeah.
was made fully by AI. So that's that's pretty common these days. I feel like brands are actively exploring. They're not as afraid as they used to be. And it really helps that the video qualities have improved quite a bit as well.
Awesome. Okay, so the world basically is belonging now to the brave, right?
Clearly.
Right? Yeah. Go forth and conquer, right? Like that's the message essentially, right? And I think it's interesting, right? Because being from the Valley, the Silicon Valley, right? Like there is definitely, there's always been a
Yeah.
little bit of like, let's just test it out and let's just try it out. And if we break it, then that's fine. Failure is, there's no such thing as a failure, it's a learning, right?
Right.
And fail fast. And all of these things that we kind of like almost grew up listening to and embracing here in the valley. I think it becomes even more important right now. And what's interesting is like companies that are probably not valley based are also the leaders right now, and the contenders are actually adopting that mindset. So it is all very fascinating for sure. I know I'm like playing a little bit of a ping pong over here because now I'm gonna get you back into the world of analytics because I
Yes.
suddenly thought, wait, I want to know about how you think about this for analytics. So in your world of analytics, Neelima, there's so many different, I guess, like again, things that need to happen, right? Like before you can actually make the connection to insights and
Yeah.
recommendations, right? Like the data has to be prepared and the cleaning and the
Mhm.
hygiene and this and that, right? And compliance and all that. And then you're finally, able to essentially glean some insights and recommendation, right? So when you look at that analytics train now, right? Um, where are you seeing, right? Like it's been like absolutely fascinating for you to see how much of like time savings you've been able to, get, or just the quality of insights that you've been able to get, right? And also, as you're leading your analytics teams, etc., right? Like, are you seeing that analytics leaders now, right, are able to leverage essentially a new level, right, like of output, even while you're working with your team? So how is that internal world of analytics leaders changing, with the tools out there? Yeah.
Absolutely. This is a very exciting topic for me
Okay,
and
great.
very
Awesome.
near and dear to my
Yes,
heart.
yes.
When I think about the analytics lifecycle, the first thing that comes to mind is all the grunt work, collecting the data, cleaning it, and like connecting 50 different databases, because it's never that easy or straightforward. It doesn't matter where you work. There's always multiple
Yeah.
databases and things that you're connecting. In my mind, I code that as a data janitorial work. You're almost like a data janitor. Like you have to bring everything, clean it, and get ready. That's where I am seeing, and I think a lot of the leaders in this space will agree, is the fastest path to impact.
Ah,
Because what would happen in the past is you'd often have a lot of junior analysts working in this space, or even if you had a data scientist team, a majority of their time was focused on just getting the data ready so you could run insights, so you could model, so you could do something with it. The N-1 step of all of this process, the speed, the rate of accuracy, the depth at which you can go is dramatically exponentially better. So that's a huge improvement and a benefit right now in deploying AI-based approaches into your analytics tech stack. So that's definitely a big focus area for me.
okay.
Um, and then along with it, you talked about insights. In the past, our main limitations were, did you have enough number of people who knew what they were looking for, and did you know how to encode it into the systems so that you'd connect it to your BI systems and then pass it on to your business stakeholders who could keep on top of it? Now, AI gives us a different path. Now, you're not as limited in terms of scalability because of number of people on the team. It's more around how have you defined what you need, and the systems are now smart enough to know, you told me to look at one thing, let me look at 5 other things, bring all of them back, visualize them for you. And oh, by the way, have you considered I could also automate the decision-making process and the end result? I think that as agentic AI becomes more and more prevalent for how we deploy them into our ecosystems, it opens up this entire world of possibility where every single touch point in that analytics lifecycle or that analytics value chain can dramatically explode in terms of speed, accuracy, and impact.
Wow. I mean, I was just following along and thinking that must be so empowering, right? Like, especially like in one career, right? Like, as in you talked about having been in this space for like 15, 20 years, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and going back and thinking about like how much time you were spending, right?
Oh God,
Um,
yes.
right. In fact, you used the word like the data janitorial work, and I had a recent guest, and we were also talking about, obviously there's no conversation about AI and marketing without data in it, right? Like,
Correct.
because that doesn't exist, right? Um, and he was talking about dumpster diving, right? Like in data.
That's a good way to look at it.
So so this is not stuff that I'm making up. This is coming from like experts and how you guys are like viewing, right? Like that world and thinking like, oh, okay, now finally, right? Like we get to essentially enjoy the juicy parts,
Yeah.
right? Like and the rewarding parts of our career, right?
Yeah.
So on a more sobering note, right? So if you're if agentic AI is going to be able to go in and like you mentioned, every single touch point, right? Like in the analytics journey, or every single node can pretty much be
Mhm.
enhanced or even replaced, right? Like by agentic AI, right? So on a sobering note, because I think like that's also out there and the worry, right? Is that what about like future analysts, right? Like folks who are graduating now or entering the workspace, right? Like, what is your viewpoint on that? Like, how are they going to even learn the mechanics of it? Because the reason why Neelima today knows the value of like great insights and great recommendations, etc., is because you've actually gone through the nuts and bolts, right, of the thing. So yeah, so I'm just curious,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on that space and any message out there, right, in terms of like what analysts should be even like thinking about, right, like the ones that are much more junior or in the early in the career. Yeah.
Happy to. So I want to start with a personal story here. So when I was perhaps in high school or college, my dad would often say, "Oh, everything is so easy for you guys. You just use calculators and computers, and we had to do it the hard way. You are never going to learn them all of the mechanics, and therefore I don't know how you're going to know as much as our generation knew." And I bring that as an example because I think we are again at that kind of a pivotal point where perceptually perhaps it feels like, if you're a young person right out of college or if you're a junior analyst, maybe you are not needing to do all of the mechanics, like you are not touching every single mechanical aspect of what an analytics life cycle looks like. I personally think that's a great thing. If anything, you've gotten yourself away from the grunt work so you can focus on the strategy. And I genuinely and strongly believe that treating an agentic AI or an AI system that automates a lot of this work as a co-pilot, or think of it as the best phrase that comes to mind is a symbiotic relationship. To me, it's a symbiotic relationship between the AI and the human expertise. So you are kind of offloading or delegating now. No matter how junior you are, you have somebody to delegate, also known as AI in this case. You are delegating some of that grunt work to the machine or the AI, so you can focus on the strategy, the value, and connecting the dots to the business deliverables. I think that's powerful. Uh, the best people, the best analysts will know how to do that in a way where they don't feel the need to touch every activity. And I think that's what is going to differentiate a really strong entry level analyst from not a strong one. In the past, as long as you knew to how to write your SQL code, pull some data, and do some cleaning, you were automatically valuable because not everybody was learning how to write SQL
Yeah,
code.
yeah.
Now, it's not automatic, but you also have a formula for success is how you differentiate yourself, and it's all about how you think about the value that you're bringing to the business and the type of value that you're bringing to the business. So I know you use the word sobering,
Yeah.
and my response to that is it is sobering, but no different from any other type of evolution in how we get better at what we do. We are taking away some of the grunt work and empowering people to make sure that they're focusing more on the higher value tasks. Also, the reason why I have this perspective is I have, in all the years that I've been in this space, I have never led an analytics team or never been in this situation where I felt like I have too many people capacity and therefore it's almost, I have never known an analytics leader who told me or has ever said, Neelima, I have too many people and don't know what to do with them.
Yeah.
And I bring that up because it actually is a good thing where we might have augmented support as we are going through this journey, where people will have maybe not too much, but a little bit of luxury to focus on the higher components of that value delivery chain.
Yeah, that's a great insight actually, especially this the aspect of the scale, right? And being able to get to so many projects that you would never ever get to, or even data sources, right? That would just be languishing, right? One of the phrases that I've used is data graveyards, right?
Oh, yes.
Right, because it's like you bring them in and then they are there, and that's it, right? Like that's it. Anyway, so as I'm thinking back, right, like to what you just shared about the message, right, and the changing landscape right now for the analysts coming in. So yes, I agree with you totally that the differentiation factors are going to be more strategic, right, and being able to see the big picture. I mean, there's just a little bit of I guess like a skeptic in me, which says that even that comes with some experience, right? In the sense that when you're completely when you're green, you're so heads down, right? Like just looking at that micro task that's been given to you that you don't necessarily even understand, right? Like how this product fits into the portfolio of the company or into the vision of the company or, like the big picture. So I think in the beginning, there is a little bit of, but yeah, but if I do get an intern, for example, who can actually see the big picture, that's like amazing, right? Like if I can couple it up. So that's where I guess I'm not completely sold on it right now that the analysts who are entering the field can be strategic from the get-go, right? Because they need a little bit of grounding, right? Like in the domain or in the process, etc. And I'm sure with AI, right? Like we'll probably figure out like how to do that as well, right? Like how to teach
Yeah.
them, right?
And
Like,
and I also feel like as this space continues to evolve,
yeah.
our education pipelines will also evolve. What I mean by that is, when I was getting into analytics a few years ago, there were not as many analytics university programs. Now you go to any big university, you have a master's in analytics or a business bachelor's in business analytics. You have all of those as available, easy options to go through. That didn't even exist. Like if you go back 15, 20 years, that particular specialization was not available
Yeah,
at
yeah,
all. So what it gives us something to think about is how, to your point, yes, people who came through the traditional paths of what an analyst should have looked like up until now or a couple of years ago are still coming through the standard traditional educational pipelines, which
yeah.
have not caught up to what the industry needs. But I am generally a big believer in the concept that as opportunities show up, intellectual capitalism shows up. What I mean by that is
Yeah.
we know that there is going to be a talent gap. We know there already exists a talent gap in how quickly these generative AI equipments and approaches are changing our business world, and therefore we will need our workforce to be wrapped up on that. And it's at all levels, not just at the entry levels. The entry levels, if anything, will have the benefit of heavily funded university programs
Yeah.
actively pivoting to help them get ramped up, to
Yeah.
your point, where they're being forced to think about, this is grunt work, this a machine can take care of. Let me think about how do I add strategic value from day one. I don't know, that's my perspective.
Yeah,
Also,
yeah.
I've been
And
told I'm an eternal optimist, so there you go.
I am one too, absolutely, right? But again, these are unprecedented times, right? Like as we opened the show with. But I'm also very curious, Neelima, because you're also in a position right now where you are actually leading a class, a cohort at UCSF, right? So obviously we are in San Francisco Bay Area, and it's a leading university. So maybe like share with us. from your own practical, experience, that how you've seen that curriculum shift, right? Like in terms of the students that you have in your class, right? Like what are you guys teaching them in, like in the sense, like, are you telling them like, okay, this is how the stuff is done, but hey, don't worry about this. Now we've got, agentic AI who's going to take care of all of this, right? Like, how is it shifting, even in the course curriculum, right? Because that's happening right now.
Yeah, I love that question. And as I was prepping for this course, we had to be very intentional about, and also knowing how the market is evolving so rapidly. We were very intentional about how do we bring this course to life in a way that makes the students street ready
Yeah,
immediately as soon as the course ends.
love it.
So the approach that I ended up taking is still offer fundamental foundational concepts,
Mm.
but anchor more on the intuition behind why a certain technique, for example, analysis of variance or a regression analysis or any data science technique you can think of, anchoring in the intuition behind it. What is the business logic behind why a certain data science technique might be applicable and helpful for marketing?
Mm.
What kinds of decision triggers does it enable? Anchoring on those concepts versus actually going into the hard math of this is how you do it. And so, of course, we've talked through code. Of course, we've looked at examples of this is how you might run this in a real life scenario with your actual database. But we spent a lot more time talking about, very soon you'll have agents running this. You just need to know what the foundational aspects of it are, and spend a lot more time thinking through the strategic aspects of how will you take what you're learning and help your business stakeholders or your marketing teams understand why are you recommending what are you recommending, why are you asking them to make decisions differently, how will this help them eventually either save money or make more money as a business. So we are focusing a lot more on that, connecting the dots with that AI lens of saying, in the past it mattered how fast and how quick and how efficient your code is or was,
Yeah.
and now that's a little bit of a less factor because you have AI to do a lot of that for you.
Yeah.
In fact, it's funny, one of the classes where we were teaching regression, I had told the students, when I was in college, my professor actually made us do those things by hand because
Yeah.
his words, not mine. We needed to see the mechanics of how every step went through. So when we used a computer later on, we'd know what was happening in the background. And I gave that as an example just to tell, not only talk about how far we've come, but also give the example of now we are showing you a piece of Python code, just so you know the mechanics, but know that some AI will be doing this for you anyway. So that's how much it's
Yeah.
changed already
Yeah.
in terms of as you think about our educational approaches.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. And it's so topical, Neelima, right? Like, because this is a course that you're teaching right now, and the
Mhm.
world of AI is exploding right now, right? And this cohort is getting ready to get into our businesses, right? And the thing is that actually it's interesting because I was also talking with a guest earlier, and he was sharing, how in the marketing teams, so this is a revenue marketing organization, and never have we ever had AI ML engineers be part
Uh-huh.
of
Yes.
the revenue marketing organization, right? And obviously, this is an AI forward company, and they are, and so it was interesting because he was also sharing this, that so what these AI ML engineers know how to do is something that I don't know. I have like 20 plus years of domain expertise,
Uh-huh.
and but these guys don't know what I know, right?
Correct.
So it's the coming together
Yeah.
of the domain expertise. Like I'll teach you, right, like everything about this domain, and you guys are going to become, in his words, he used these words, that you guys are going to become the most valuable assets to the company, right? Um,
Absolutely.
so it's absolutely bringing it full circle, right? Like the workforce that is being readied and that needs to be readied again. I definitely think that there are a few leading universities that are offering the programs, and I'm sure that there'll be proliferation of these. I mean, pretty much like my high school kid, right? Like in summer holidays, I've never, I've always had a lot of pushback, right, in terms of like, what do you want to do in the summer? But this time, when I very, cautiously brought up, like, how about learning a little bit about AI, right? Like,
Yeah.
and the resistance was not there. I think everybody is essentially wanting to get on the train, right, and
Yeah.
learn about it. So amazing. So I know the time has just flown by, and so we will draw this to a close. But if there's anything at all, Neelima, that you'd want to share that we didn't touch upon, for the marketers audience, right, that's listening in. And also if you want to share anything about how they can get in touch with you, what topics are very interesting to you that, you'd love to get folks to get in touch with you, etc. Definitely like go for it.
Thank you, Angelina. I think my one big shout out for all the marketers out there listening to this show today is uh, much like how Angelina said, be brave, go try it out. This is your opportunity and your biggest competitive differentiator. The sooner you get on this bus, the more advantages you're going to reap from it. So that's my big shout out is don't hesitate, go for it. And I am personally very passionate about marketing analytics, all the data-driven decisioning, connecting the dots between business and data. So if you want to chat with me, hit me up on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn profile, I will make sure to add it in the show notes. But looking forward to hearing from everyone. Thank you, Angelina.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really, truly enjoyed the conversation, and I was looking forward to it, and it absolutely was fun, right? And learned
I
a lot.
agree. It was great fun.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.